the duties of the chair, make a motion to Bert O'Donnell to be chair. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second, Sam Malafronte. This is going to be a remote meeting. One of our commissioners is remote, so it'll be a roll call vote. Sam?
Sam Alfronte, yes.
Corey Miles, yes.
Elizabeth Blake, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. Thank you. As I said, this will be a remote meeting. We do have two continuations tonight. 80 Union Street is continued, and 17 Oregon Road is continued. First item of business is the Open Space and Recreation Plan presentation. We have Susan Karen here. Susan's a former Conservation Commissioner and Chair of the Open Space Committee. Floor is yours, Susan.
All right, thank you. So you've introduced who I am. And I'd like to introduce Krista Moravec, who's a senior planner from Horsley and Witten, who's been our consultant throughout this past year of preparing this document. First, I just want to thank you for any attention you've given to this big document that we've given you to read, and we're hoping for your support and endorsement and comments. And thank you for letting us present this to you, and Krista's presentation will help summarize it. But at the very beginning, I do want to say that of all the meetings we go to, I feel like this is extremely important. One of the major things that we do on the Open Space Committee is buy land, and we prioritize land of the highest conservation value, which most often means it's land projects that we're looking at are jurisdictional to this commission. So it's really important we look at, we prioritize land with all sorts of wetland resource areas, priority natural habitats, and critical natural landscapes. And I don't need to elaborate because you know what they are. Because we prioritize those properties, and we want to be sure that the goals and objectives of this plan both support and align with yours. And so that's what we're thinking, that we hope that's our goal. And so that being said, I'll turn it over to Krista.
Thank you, thank you. So I'll just walk through our presentation. I'd like to say, if you do have questions, please, I think we can, we'll take them as I go. I think that's fair. So next slide, please. So as Susan mentioned, we're just going to provide a very brief overview of the plan, talk about just highlight the open space inventory, the needs analysis, the goals, and then the action plan. We'll answer any questions, and ultimately asking for a letter of support. The Division of Conservation Services, Massachusetts, they are the overseers at the state level. They approve plans. One of the requirements for approval is to get letters of support, and they require one from the planning board, the select board, the regional planning agency for the town, which is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. But really, because of the, as Susan mentioned, the work that the Conservation Commission does, we'd also like to request a letter of your support as well. Next slide, please. So just to give some context, so we're all on the same page, because open space can mean different things in different ways. So for this plan, it is undeveloped land that has important values, so ecological functions, natural resources, has cultural resources that are worthy of conservation and protection, and this is regardless of ownership, so public or private. And those are just some examples: wetlands, forest, floodplain, and the like. Next slide, please. I think recreational areas, these are probably a little more intuitive for folks. Those are our outdoor recreational facilities, so our parks, our playgrounds, athletic fields and courts, our bikeways. Next slide, please. Why does the town have an OSRP? Just to remind us all, so the plan helps us maintain the benefits and enhance the benefits of these resources they have. Obviously ecological functions, but there are also social functions. There are places where the residents gather, and they have economic functions in many different aspects. This document can guide policy decisions around open space, natural resources, and recreational issues, and it supports efforts to acquire funding. So as having an approved plan keeps the town eligible for funding through DCS, so there are different grant opportunities. But it also helps the town if it's looking for other funding for implementation. It shows that projects have been vetted with the public and have support going forward. Next slide, please. So the OSRP has sort of 11 required sections. Generally, it provides a community snapshot, who lives in Marshfield, talks about infrastructure, like water and sewer, stormwater. It has a lot of environmental inventories of its natural resources, the open space and recreational inventory. There's a needs analysis, which I'll briefly touch on this evening. There's an overall vision, goals and objectives to meet the needs, and then a 7-year action plan. And 7 years is a number that these plans need to be approved every 7 years. The document's good for 7 years, so that the action plan is laid out in that way. And when we get, I'll also touch on that, and I'll provide a little bit more detail. Yep, thanks. So in the open space and recreational inventory, so we look at all the different ownerships of land. So town resources, land owned by nonprofits, owned by the Commonwealth, and then under private, we're looking at our Chapter 6 lands that are property owners that are participating in the Chapter 61 program, conservation restrictions, and that. So it's a pretty extensive inventory. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot. It's probably very hard to read, but this isn't taken from the plan, just to give a visual of the distribution of resources throughout town. So that's just, and this is by ownership. Next slide, please. So the needs analysis was developed. We did some public engagement. So we did a community survey in the fall of October. The following October, we did an open house, and that was to present the action plan, to get feedback on that. We did many interviews with town staff and different stakeholders. And then on this slide is also plans that the town, existing plans. So the town, the open space and recreation plan is not the only document that the town has to plan for these resources. And we want to make sure that we're incorporating all of the efforts that are going on right now. So that's a list of those that we've also tried to make sure that we are consistent and incorporating, finding ways to continue to move their objectives forward as well. Next slide. So I'm just going to touch on the needs analysis. So there are 3 categories: resource protection needs, community needs, and then needs of the town. The management needs is what the title is, but more of the needs of the town to maintain and operate its resources. So under resource protection needs, sort of the major groupings of, themes, building climate resiliency, so protecting natural resources as, kind of the first line of defense against climate impacts, shoreline protection, reducing coastal erosion and sedimentation, to minimize property damage and flooding, public trees and upland forests, so protecting those resources, and better management of them. The North and South rivers and their associated watersheds, a big need to ensure that we're balancing protection of them, but also the recreational uses of them, and aquifer protection, minimizing pollutants in the town's drinking water supply. Next slide, please. Under community needs, so kind of what we pulled from all of those different sources, walking and biking connections, making sure that they, connecting the town's resources to neighborhoods, and making sure that they're safe. Recreational facility and programming, so under this category, just ensuring that there is a high demand for athletic field use, so ensuring that that can be accommodated. And then just decreasing facilities as different interests come up in different sports. The town's open space and conservation areas, increasing awareness of them, and finding opportunities for more diverse users. And finally, accessibility and inclusiveness. So part of this effort, we did an ADA self-evaluation, and we looked at properties under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission and Recreation Department. And so from that, we trying to understand barriers for use for people who have disabilities, so continuing to make those improvements. I know the town has been making some efforts on its recreational facilities, And there's also been opportunities created on conservation areas and open spaces, so continuing to do that and ensuring that there's the geographic distribution of resources townwide, so all residents can access resources. Next slide, please. And finally, our management needs slide. So for recreation land, just building capacity to maintain properties, and developing an inventory to understand what those needs are at each property. Under the recreation department, just ensuring that they're building capacity at the staff level and at the budget level to meet demands. And then for land acquisition and protection, ensuring that all the decision-making bodies of the town understand resource protection, the importance of that, and making sure that they're all meeting common goals that are stated in the open space and rec plan, and just continuing the partnerships with all of the other nonprofits that are protecting land in Marshfield. Next slide, please. So for the goals and objectives, there are 5. We have one new one from the last update, and under each, I was gonna highlight where the Conservation Commission fits, but you are really an integral part of many of them. Next slide, please. And you'll see that there are a lot of commissions, committees, departments that participate in the implementation of this plan. They're needed for its success, but also a lot of regional and community partners. This is really just a snapshot. So, as I said, I think you're pretty much integrated in all of the goals. I tried to highlight, so I think I brought my cheat sheet here, and I went through, and I think I did a highlight almost under every goal for the Concom. So, if you have any questions, please ask. So our first goal is about protecting the town's drinking water, and that includes monitoring and update lands that are prioritized for drinking water protection, so keeping track of those properties, and acquiring them or otherwise protecting them, particularly those in the Water Resource Protection District, enforcing stormwater management best practices to reduce pollutants, and then encouraging development that will minimize impacts to the aquifers. Next slide, please. Our second goal is about expand and connect existing preserved land to enhance species and wildlife habitats and preserve scenic vistas. So this talks about some actions in here are identifying, prioritizing key parcels for acquisition, particularly those that have important habitat and will support biodiversity, building, addressing the gaps between habitat, reducing fragmentation, protecting wetlands and the different types of wetlands, vernal pools, salt marshes, the beaches, and riparian corridors, and preparing for sea level rise and effects that it will have on habitat, town property, and town infrastructure. Next slide, please. Thank you. Goal 3 focuses on recreational opportunities for everyone in town. So continuing to develop stewardship plans on those properties that are heavily used. Continuing to support the rail trail and Brindle Path multi-use as a multi-use path. Continuing to support staff and volunteers that build and manage kayak and canoe access to the rivers. And continuing to explore opportunities to acquire easements for river access. Next slide, please. Goal 4, increase collaboration among the community, town boards, local conservation groups, and improve open space and recreation. So on continuing to implement the trail management plan, monitoring the list of open spaces on the town's website to ensure that it's current, making sure that information about amenities and facilities are still available, and continuing to publicize trail and recreational improvements. Next slide. So this is the 5th and our new goal for this update. So improve the stewardship of conservation land in high priority natural resource areas. So this really focuses on doing inventory, so establishing a property management approach for conservation areas, so working with volunteers and staff, outlining clear roles and responsibilities, seeking a budget to support the management of conservation areas, getting detailed into the documenting the conditions on sites, and then prioritizing those that really need more specific plans, either for restoration or forestry management, and finally identifying partnerships that are going to help support a lot of those actions. And next slide, I think that's it. Very quick overview, but happy to ask any questions if you have any.
Very good, thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments?
I think one comment that came up when this was continued for the presentation, you mentioned like the 7-year action plan. Does this evaluate the past 7 years and how that action plan has kind of, it does?
Yes, it does. We
Okay.
do an audit at the very beginning, right? I'll let you
No,
answer that.
you can,
All
it's
right,
your
we do-
plan too, Susan.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, the first thing we do when we start it is to audit what we've done and go over the goals, see what maybe things have been accomplished, are they ongoing, should they be removed, should we add new ones? So that is a big part, that's where we start, actually.
Mhm. And what was the outcome? Like, are a lot of the goals the same? Yeah,
They're ongoing.
yeah.
And some of them we've made good progress on, but
Yeah.
it's, a lot of
Long
this is
process.
ongoing, it's a long process. And goal number 5 is gonna be a particularly long process, because that's something new, the town hasn't really done much in that area. And we really wanna focus on that with climate change, making our forests more resilient, the trees. We have to work harder at that, and that's a big priority at the statewide level. There's a lot of programs available for help, loans out there, not loans, grants, there's 3 different agencies that I can think of right off the top of my head that are willing to help and give money. So that's a statewide thing that we need to be a part of. It's a huge problem. Trees can't save us if we don't save them. So that's the new thing, and that's gonna be a long term, because it involves funding,
Yeah,
really.
right.
You know, we're gonna have to have dedicated people, and we need to get grants. That's gonna be a work in progress. So,
I would just add to, which I didn't mention, so the action plan itself it's more than just actions. We identify, as I mentioned, there's a lead entity and support, which we've highlighted the Conservation Commission, but there's also a time frame. So we try to prioritize actions as well, and a potential funding source. So we didn't do cost estimates for implementation, but we did identify a way to implement it, like a funding, so many of the grants that Susan just mentioned, we've highlighted in here as well. So to help at least identify that we do need money to implement certain things. Some things are just part of just doing business in town, and it's nice to write ongoing, but it's like a reminder that this is how we make decisions, is stating it in here, and it just sort of commits the town to doing it, to move forward.
I can add one more thing to that too. It's not stated explicitly in the plan, but if you summarize the work that we've done since 2004, when we started the very first open space plan, the open space committee was formed. We've acquired over 370 acres of land and spent over $8 million of CPC funds in doing that. And the majority of those, I have a whole list that I could go through. They're all, a lot of them on the South River, on the North River, throughout town, a lot of wetland resource areas, a lot of water supply protection, and a lot of trail opportunities. So, I feel like we can do more, but we've been fairly successful. I mean, it depends on the economy and where real estate prices are and how easy that is to do, but anyway, that's a more specific
No, thank
answer, I think, to your question.
That makes sense, thank you.
The other part of that is, I think a fair number of those you receive grants for.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
and-
Thank you.
One of the reasons we have to have the open space plan is to make ourselves eligible for the grants.
Right.
Yeah, we have to cite these. They all want to know, how does this grant fulfill a goal or objective of the open space plan? And the more goals that we can cite, the better it is. And we've had pretty good luck. Some water supply protection grants. We got a matching grant to build the first phase of South River Park. We've had land grants, so.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, the fifth goal that you added about improving the stewardship of conservation land, I think that's really a good step. And I hope to see more collaboration among different boards and committees and, private groups. The trail maintenance group, they've been really exceptional
Right.
in what
Really.
they've been doing to improve access to the conservation lands. And, one of the challenges, I think, is probably, managing that access when it does
Mhm.
open. It comes with, invasive species and litter and dog challenges and things
Yeah.
like that. So, that's always kind of a challenge, is once you open a place up for access, then you kind of open it up for
Right.
a bunch of different issues. So, but I do think it is important to keep things open and accessible, and hopefully we can improve stewardship
Right.
over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And hopefully doesn't fall completely on the town to initiate and undertake it,
Exactly, because, we want to be proactive, and that's
Yeah.
sort of what we're talking about. We do a lot of maintenance. We have an incredible trails group, as you know. They're out there all the time, making, building new trails.
Oh, yeah.
They're
They put
incredible.
up those
Out
hiking
there every
signs all
week.
around.
They're
Every
out there
week.
every week. They're a really good group of people and well-run by Ned Bangs. But the forestry management thing is so that we can prevent trees from falling down, that they're more resilient to the storms, to flooding. You can go through our woods and see that, some of them, which is consistent throughout the state, our forests are in trouble. All the climate change is exacerbating invasive species, the different pests and infestations. They're really weakening trees, and there are statewide aerial photos and studies of all of this to help us. How do you address them? They're doing research on manual treatment, you have the scope, the size, can you do chemical treatment, and in some cases that really is recommended. So we're trying to educate ourselves about what the state of managing forests are. And so that's gonna be so that we can be proactive and not just deal with the aftermath of, and just, regular maintenance.
Mhm.
So trying to step it up if we can,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'd like to see, friends groups for different areas
Mhm.
form and things like, people really take, an initiative to invest their own time and
Right.
resources.
I think some forestry management plans, to understand what we have and how to protect it. I think that's a great idea.
Right. Other communities are doing it, and I went to a conference in the fall out at the state, and, where was it?
Okay.
Anyway, I attended a conference in the Midwest, the western part of the state, and I can't remember the name of the town, it's offhand. But there was a lot of people throughout the state, and a lot of communities are funding these things in different ways. Some of them use CPC funds for forestry management, others in the more rural communities, Sturbridge, that's where it was. They have a lot of, forests that they can log, and they do timber, they use timber sales to fund some of their forestry management, which is interesting. But then there's grant money as well. There are state programs that will actually help write you a grant. If you just give them what your problems are, they will direct you to the right program. And then Fisheries and Wildlife has plans as well. So this is at the very beginning, but we're trying to educate ourselves more. We'll be attending another conference at the end of the month too, out at UMass Amherst. There's resources out there that we can hopefully tap into over time, so.
Yeah, that's great.
Very good. Liz, not to forget you, have you got any comments or questions?
No, I don't have any questions or comments right now, thanks.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to add anything?
Yes, if it's all right, I'd like to ask something.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Absolutely. Harry Klebanoff, 52 Assumption Road.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Well, I don't want it for very long. Susan, I just wanted to let you know that we've been working on a lot of these things as well in a community group for about 3 years. And we have some connections outside of the community to bring some other people in. If there are ways that we could be of some help, we've activated about 130 families living around the wetlands down on the Green Harbor area. But we're also very interested in climate change and doing a lot of work there. So if there are ways that we could be of any help to you or share some of what we've got, I'd like to learn more about what you're doing, if there's a way to do any of that.
That would be great. I'll have to try to get your email address so we can, if you go on actually to the website, to the town's website on the open space page, my contact information is there. So please reach
Great.
out. We'd love to talk to you.
Great, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to make a motion for the Conservation Commission to issue a letter of endorsement for the open space plan, and also thank the Open Space Committee for their efforts, particularly Susan. It's her second time around on this thing. It's a huge, huge effort.
Thank you.
Have I got a second?
Second. Corey Miles, second.
Roll call vote. Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. I think that's what you needed, right?
Yes. Right.
Thank you,
Yes,
yes.
very
thank you very
much.
much for your support and your time.
Okay, next on the agenda is our public hearings. First one is 2502, 50 Cove Street, and that's a continuation. And Liz Lake is the hearing officer.
So I visited the site with Lee, I think Lee's here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I visited the site with Lee and Commissioner Malfronte and Administrator Sealy. We kind of went over, we got a better idea of what the proposed work to be done was. And we also received a revised plan, which I think was circulated to everyone. So Lee, do you kind of want to just go over generally, the revisions to the plan that you submitted?
Yep, absolutely. So really, like, the questions were regarding the beach grass and the sand pathways in the back, and that's basically my main revisions. The first thing I'm proposing is to remove all of the 2x2 concrete stepping stones that are within the sand paths from site. Those sand pathways would remain just sand. And before, a big issue was the beach rock and stone buffer for ticks, where I was taking out some of the beach grass. Now we're leaving the beach grass, but what I'm proposing is a small snow/sand fence edging along the beach grass dune areas. So what this was going to do, it'll define the edges of the pathway. It'll help keep the beach grass from encroaching where it's overhanging if someone's walking through, and try to deter the transfer of ticks. The slats on that sand fence edging would be 2 1/4 inches apart. So basically everything you see, if you go to a local beach, they have a lot of that sand fencing up. It's the same idea, but on a smaller scale. The one thing within the sand pathways, because the homeowner is in his 80s and mobility is an issue, so if deemed necessary, we'd like to put down an ADA compliant Moby mat or a rollout beach walkway within those sand pathways. And that wouldn't be a permanent fixture, it would be seasonal, and it would be removed in the winter months. The next thing you'll see on the plan is I just proposed to change the curves of the existing patio to square it off. And the reason for that is to allow more space, again, as like a tick buffer. This is where they put their dining table for outside use. It's not a lot of space, but it's anything that can kind of help that issue. the area that we would extend is approximately 5.5 square feet, which that seagrass would then be planted elsewhere throughout the property. Let's see. Another thing, so there's the existing blue beach rock planting beds that you'll see as you approach the front of the house. I'm proposing to densely plant this with a variety of native coastal plants. Proposing to replace any non-native plants with native, maybe a 1-to-1 ratio. For example, the large forsythia that's overhanging a walkway, replace that with, say, an eastern red cedar or something comparable. And that's basically what I have with the revisions here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, do you have any comments?
Yes, we went out to site there. An improvement here with this current design, the amended design, would be the removal of the flagstone and more of like a natural sand pathway over towards the beach wall. Previously, there had been the flagstone. We do regularly see Moby mats and this type of dune, like coastal dune barrier beach type environment. Additionally, there'd be some extra plantings over here, if you look at the screen where the cursor is, of native plantings such as beach grasses or eastern red cedars. Currently, there's what appears to be river stone, just like flat stones, compactly put in that area, not really allowing for growth of vegetation between them. The applicant is wishing to square off or change the design of that existing patio to give them some more room and avoid the ticks as he's mentioned.
So I think just kind of piggybacking off of our discussion at the last meeting, I didn't have any issue with the work on the front of the property, and I think that sentiment was shared by some of the other commissioners, but I think our greatest concern obviously was the work proposed along in the backyard along the dune. So I think the revisions are definitely an improvement. I think the sand path and the removal of the pavers that are there, that's a significant improvement. And then using the snow fencing as opposed to cobblestones, I'm okay with that. My only real concern is, squaring off the curved patio. Do any other commissioners have any thoughts on that?
And it may even be less than 5.5 square feet. 'Cause
Okay.
I was recently, so it's like it's almost square, but it's just really just curved off. Like if you were to put a tape measure to it, it's probably less than 5 square feet.
Gotcha. And I do think the removal of some of the, the pavers that are in the sand path, and then the introduction of more native species around the property. I mean, I think I would be okay with that, small extension, but if anyone has any thoughts otherwise, any other commissioners, I'd like to hear their thoughts.
I don't have any issue with the extension. I think it's an overall big improvement from
Yep.
the original plan, so I appreciate the revisions that you made. And
Thank you.
I think it's a minimal extension that can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's who knows if the benefit's gonna be there, but if any little bit's gonna help, because like ticks were an overwhelming issue last year.
Yeah.
And they don't wanna spray chemicals, like there were dead rabbits and stuff after they hired somebody to, spray for ticks, so they kinda wanna keep everything as natural as possible.
Okay.
I'm okay with the revised plan. I think it's an improvement from what, and after being out there, I think that area between the patio and the seawall, or the stone wall, I guess, is very densely vegetated right now with seagrass. Like, it is they've done a pretty, or the previous owner
Yeah.
did a really good job of establishing that.
And we'll continue that as well.
Yeah, and I think I understand, after being out there, kind of the
Yep.
concern, and the snow fence, I think, will help that. And then obviously removal of the flagstone or river stone. I'm supportive of that, and I think if a Moby mat or one of those roll-out, the picture you had,
Yep.
I think I'm all for that, for accessibility to get to the seawall, I guess.
Yeah, I missed your site visit, but I took a look down there on Monday, and I agree with the other commissioners.
All right.
I think it's a reasonable plan.
All right, thank you.
And I also, I would like to add, from the proposed plan now, I think more aligns with an RDA, as opposed to the original, the amount of work that was proposed
Yeah,
originally.
yeah, exactly.
I was kind of actually leaning towards NOI, but I think this is more in line with just kind of replacing some existing features that, and better managing it, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of what's being proposed is a one-to-one replacement, and what I'm seeing in the revised plan, I'm okay with that. Any other thoughts from the commissioners? No?
No?
There anyone from the public who has any comment?
Not here.
Okay. Mike, any special conditions for this project?
Yeah, I would suggest the following on the cover letter. To ensure best management practices are followed before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the conservation administrator or agent for guidance on conservation permits for work beyond the approved work activities. And I would also suggest issuing the determination of applicability with a +5 and -2.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to close the hearing, and issue a determination of applicability with a +5 and a -2. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
It'll be a roll call vote.
Okay, Corey?
Yeah, Corey Miles, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
Pam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a new hearing, so I'll read the legal notice. In compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Chapter 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Concom Wednesday, March 5th, for determination of applicability, filed by Kevin Bossert, P.O. Box 890-287, Weymouth, to determine whether the area depicted on plans or map referenced below an area is subject to jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. And the hearing officer is Elizabeth Lake.
Mike, have all the administrative requirements been satisfied for this one?
The taxes have not yet been confirmed. We spoke to the applicant, and apparently the check is in the mail. And also the town treasurer accountant's office is very confident that it will be deposited in the next day or two, or received
Okay.
in the next day or two. So we could open the hearing and discuss it, and then issue the permit on the 19th if the commission would like to do so.
Okay. So we would discuss it tonight and then continue the hearing and vote on it at the next hearing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fine with that. are the other commissioners okay with that?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here from the applicant to present the project?
No, I did speak with the applicant today. He was not able to attend tonight's meeting. However, we discussed the project, and I feel like I could give a good rundown of the scope of work.
Okay, great.
So the homeowner would like to do some foundational repairs at 32 Grotto Road, as you can see by this highlighted section and this picture here. The foundation is no longer squared. It's been damaged. The applicant indicated that this home is foreclosed for some period of time without any residents there. After acquiring the home, speaking with neighbors, it's determined that likely a tree fell on this portion of the home and damaged the foundation. So they will have to do some repairs, which will involve digging to the subsurface and repairing this section of foundation here. That being said, the applicant is currently working with the building department to get an elevation certificate to prove that this area of the basement is outside of the FEMA flood zone. However, if the scope of work changes at all and they would have to make some more impacts to the subsurface outside of the immediate foundation here, then this RDA would cover that impact to the subsurface as well. One thing to note is that there are a large amount of mature and thriving eastern red cedars on the property. It's encouraged, or in my opinion, it should be encouraged that these cedar trees remain in good health, particularly the ones outside of the FEMA flood zone, as that's where the majority of those trees are, and only a small portion of this property is within the flood zone. But we can encourage that in the cover letter.
I'm okay with the work that's being proposed, and I agree, I would like to see the existing eastern red cedars remain, those that are located within the flood zone. Do any of the other commissioners have any comments?
I agree with you.
Okay. Anyone from the public have any comment? Hearing none, given that some of the administrative requirements have not been satisfied, I'll move to continue the hearing to the next hearing, which is on March, is it the 19th?
Yes.
Okay, to March 19th. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Okay, the next hearing is gonna be continued, but I'll read it into the record since it's a new meeting. Okay. In compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Concom Wednesday, March 5th, to consider the notice of intent filed by the Town of Marshfield, DPW, for the replacement of a failed stream culvert in an existing driveway located in inland bank bordering vegetated wetland and riverfront area at 80 Union Street, Marshfield. Sam will be the hearing officer, but this has been continued, correct, Mike?
Yes.
So I guess we open the meeting, it's town land, so there won't be any taxes.
That is true.
Have you got the number?
Yes, the DP number has been received. Let me just check that on my email quickly to confirm the exact number. I appear to be having some issues accessing my email through my work phone. However, it has been confirmed through the DEP yesterday.
Okay,
But we'll have that number ready for the next meeting.
okay, they want to continue until March 19th?
Yes.
Okay. Make a motion to continue. I got a second?
Sam Alfronti, second.
And a roll call vote. Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. And the final one is a continuation for 17 Oregon Road. They want to continue to March 19th, Mike?
Yes.
And make a motion to continue public hearing number 3125, 17 Oregon Road. Do I get a second?
Sam Alfronti, second.
Roll call vote. Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. Unanimous, Mike. That concludes our hearings. We have two COC, well, actually one COC and an extension. So 2002-75 Riverside Circle, Mike, the work has been completed there?
Yes, it's been completed as proposed. I would suggest issuing a complete town bylaw only certificate of compliance.
Okay, make a motion to issue COC for 75 Riverside Circle. Have I got a second?
Sam Alfronti, second.
Roll call vote. Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. And the last one is a request for extension for 2960 Sealand Corporation, 202 Moraine Street. Mike, do you want to speak on that?
Yes, that is for the Red Gold Farm subdivision. The subdivision is still being constructed, so they'd like an extension for 3 years.
And as far as I've heard, everything is going as expected.
Yes, and they will be beginning work on the boardwalk on the open space as part of a walking trail within the next couple weeks.
Very good. So I make a motion for extension on number 2960. Have I got a second?
Sam Alfronti, second.
Roll call vote. Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. And I believe that concludes our, Mike?
There were meeting minutes from January 22nd and February 5th for approval. And I never received any edits, so that would be as distributed.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written for January 22nd, 2025, and February 5th, 2025. Have I got a second?
Corey Miles, second.
Roll call vote. Liz?
Elizabeth Lake, yes.
Corey?
Corey Miles, yes.
Sam?
Sam Alfronti, yes.
Amber O'Donnell, yes. So with no further business, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. I get a second?
Sam Alfrandi, second.
Roll call, Liz,
Elizabeth Blake, yes.
Corey,
Cory Miles, yes.
Sam,
Sam Alfrandi, yes.
and Bert O'Donnell, yes. Thank you, good evening.